Welcome to another of our MyLiszt conversations with Minnesota artists. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome Matthew Culloton. Matthew, thank you very much for joining us. I'd like you to tell us just a bit about how you got interested in music.
Oh boy, thanks for having me. It's a treat to be with you today. I just always had great music teachers growing up. We had a really dynamic elementary music teacher growing up. I grew up in St. Cloud, Minnesota, about an hour and a half up the road from the cities. And anyway, there we had good public school music education. My brothers and I, we were very active in the church that we grew up in, and we were singing in the kids' choir through the adult choir as high school kids. And but the real reason probably is that our high school music educators, both in or I should say in band, choir, and orchestra, were all teaching us great repertoire. Our high school choral program is there aren't many like it anymore, but we were doing things like Britain's Rejoice in the Lamb, Haydn masses, Bach motets, that kind of a thing. And so that really lit a fire. I actually went to college to, I was going to be a lawyer and a politician. And so I went poli sci to Concordia up in Moorhead. And by the end of the first semester, I just didn't quite feel that call like I did with music, and I missed it. And so I knew enough music theory. I was able to kind of test out of the first semester and catch up with everybody else that first year. And so my days as a lawyer were very short lived and politician very short lived, and I felt that pull back to music. And I think I always give credit to the really great and meaningful relationships we had with music teachers.
That's wonderful. So, was singing your first musical love?
I suppose so. I mean, it was certainly what I did first, and I never stopped. So that's probably a fair assessment. In band, I played clarinet. That was my primary instrument. And then maybe my junior year of high school, I got really into the Canadian brass. And so I wanted to pick up the French horn. And so our band teacher sent me home with an extra one. And so I kind of self taught on the horn and played in orchestra for a year. And um, yeah, yeah, I have a lot of musical loves, but it does kind of come back to singing, and I certainly write the most for voice and for choirs. So yeah.
And I want to come back to your composition, but I came to know you through your work as director of the Singers.
Yeah,
So could you tell us how that group came about? I understand you
sure.
are the founder and still artistic director.
Yeah, they still ask me back. We've just finished our 22nd season. We launched in 2004, and we've always kind of been a 40 voice professional choir. Every member of the group gets a stipend for every call. And I sang with the Dale Worland Singers for the last 5 years of that organization. And I kind of was a catch-all for Dale. They gave me a title of music advisor to Dale Worland. I was a 20-something-year-old kid, but I loved repertoire. And so I found my way programming the last few Dale Worland Singers seasons with Dale in his kitchen all summer long. And then maybe the coolest thing I did with Dale, other than singing the choir, was um, edit the last number of CDs that the group recorded. And so by doing that, I was just honing my ears so much. But so that the way I kind of played so many different roles for that group, when Dale announced his retirement, enough singers came to me and said, if you do something, if you start a new choir, we'll come with you. And so I was really careful when the singers started. I didn't want to talk about it ever on Dale Worland Singers' time. I was very particular about that. I was very loyal and still am to Dale. And so I didn't want there to be any hard feelings or like I'm off in a corner recruiting during Dale Worland time. I was very particular not to. But we ran this first batch of auditions. I think my first year with the singers, I think of our 40 or so singers, like 34 of them were from the Dale Worland Singers, which is a really great way to start a choir. We just, at that time, we just thought it'd be a shame if like five singers went here and five went here. And And so that's kind of the genesis of it. Was just I had really good people who many of whom were singers in the Dale Worland Singers with me, who made a team with me. So it wasn't just me. We had the right people at the right time, putting that team together and launching. And we never had a plan B, which I think is why we're around. We never sat around those early years or in that summer before we launched saying, what if it doesn't work? Like, we had never considered that. So here we are 22 years later. And yeah, it's just a great privilege to lead these wonderful people.
Do you conduct any other groups?
I do. I'm the choir master at House of Hope Presbyterian Church in St. Paul. I've been there for 16 years. And so I've found my way to 797 Summit Avenue for a long time now. And that, a number of years ago, it actually became the home of the singers. So our music library, our office suite, and is all there. And what were classrooms at one point, and had just kind of sat empty enough where I said, I'd be happy to rent some space. And so it worked out about 6 or 7 years ago. And it's a great pairing, those two things. And from time to time, I'll go and do a little guest conducting stint, do some master classes and that kind of a thing. But I'm pretty firmly rooted here with my two groups in the cities.
Now, you mentioned your composition work. Tell us a bit about your work as a composer.
Yeah, I'm stewing over one right now that I know I've got to finish. Um, I don't like to miss deadlines in my writing, but I'm also not fast at it. I In high school, I was introduced to the King Singers. Bob Sieving introduced my twin brother Michael and I to the King Singers, and we would order up anytime a new CD came out. We'd order any of the music we could find on that CD, and we'd stand behind these music stands all summer long when school was out, and we'd like sing with the CD, just like King Singers. Total nerd thing to do. But we'd do one whole run of the CD, and then I'd switch to like the low countertenor part and do it again, and that kind of got me thinking about like writing charts for the King Singers. And I really became attached to the style of Bob Chilcott, who was a tenor in the group at the time, and did a lot of their arranging. And so I would kind of like write things out by ear. I would kind of find a track on a CD that I liked, and like a Danny Boy arrangement or something, and I would like hit pause a lot, and I'd kind of sing it back and write it out. I'd transcribe these pieces, and that kind of led me to writing and arranging. I suppose write few more arrangements than compositions, but I've been writing more and more. I hate to say original, that's up to the listener, but original compositions in the last number of years, and I enjoy it, but I just love arranging so much. And so I went to college at Concordia in Moorhead, and our teacher there was Rene Clausen, who's a wonderful composer himself. At the time, was really one of the leading names in American choral music. As a composer, kind of the Eric Whitacre before Eric Whitacre was, and so I did some independent study with Dr. Clausen at Concordia, and just kind of honed the craft, and still am honing the craft every time I see a new lyric that I'm going to set or a new text that's been commissioned. It's honing my craft, but I wrestle with it. It's a different challenge than conducting. It's kind of like a puzzle. I always figure the right answers in there somewhere when I'm at the piano, and I'm not fast. I'm kind of fussy about things, and I try to write decent enough piano parts that aren't just really basic things but have interest. And so anyway, I love writing it. I wish it was easy. I wish I could rattle off way more than I do, but I write one or two Christmas arrangements for the singers each year as part of our gala. I donate those to the silent auction. And so I'm usually working on a Christmas thing at some point throughout the year. But I love it. It's satisfying to me in a different way than conducting. When I'm conducting a concert or a rehearsal, it's 40 people who have lives that are joyous and stressful and difficult, and laid back. You're just there's so much external stuff, but with writing, it's me at the piano, and so anyway, I love it. I enjoy it. It's quiet
When you
solitude.
are composing a piece, you are sitting at the piano, but do you ever test it out with other people's voices?
I've brought some things in early drafts to singers' rehearsals and to my church choir over the years. Singers especially because they can kind of they rattle things off so fast, um, and it's nice to hear it in the voice. I think by now I sort of feel pretty comfortable with knowing what will work, and I just ask a lot of questions of the people who are commissioning me. I try to get really specific about where their soprano section sounds best, where their alto section sounds best, because each choir is inherently different. And if I'm writing for a choir, I try to really find their sweet spot before I put pencil to paper, the old fashioned way, which I still do at the piano.
The last two times that I've seen you, let's see, the University of St. Thomas Choir a
Yeah.
couple of weeks ago and the Concordia College Choir, uh, I believe both of those groups performed your arrangement of American Tune,
Yeah, they
that Paul
did.
Simon song.
Yeah, yeah.
What's it like listening to your own work? And at
I
Concordia, I think you conducted it as well.
Yeah, that's right. I did. But they made this great recording when they were out on the road. I think they were in Washington D.C. with this video they put out, and wonderful young man sang this solo that opens it so beautifully. It's really special for me because I am often in front of my own choir singing music I wrote and conducting it, and I've I've often joked that composers are not well, let me say, conductors are not often the foremost interpreters of their own music. So for me, I love seeing what other people find in the music. And I mentioned that years ago, long time ago to Renee Clausen, because we were doing a concert of all his works, kind of to celebrate his career right before retirement. And but we didn't let him conduct anything. We made him just kind of sit there in the audience and take it. And I think um, if he's like me, it's really fun. I mean, you hear things you didn't hear before as the writer of the piece. So I love it. I'm really honored when any conductor can find time in their program or space in their programming for something that I've written. I don't take that for granted.
Now, the singers have finished their season. Do you have summer plans?
Um, we've got just a little bit of sort of funny business to finish up. We've got a really cool performance for the Course America National Conference in a few weeks, kind of a one off. We're in the midst right now of the audition process. I've got one more really full day this week of auditioning and then callbacks in at the end of May. So there's a little bit of work to do with the singers before we officially put it to bed for this season. But we've we've started programming season 23. We've got a lot of the concepts and music selected. But for me, I'm off to Europe for 15 days in July. My partner Hannah and I were going to be traveling with the Minnesota Music Ambassadors. My buddy Joe is the conductor of that group and asked if we would be section leaders with some other really wonderful music educators from Minnesota. And so we're going to do that in July. We're going to do 3 days in London, Paris, um, Vienna, Switzerland, and Rothenburg, Germany. So that's the biggie. And then I play a lot of golf in the summer. So that's my getaway from music time. So that's begun.
Well, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing, I guess.
Yeah, we tend to say that title when we don't have our swing, ironically.
So you mentioned you're putting together season 23. How
Yeah.
do you go about planning either a season or a particular concert? Do you find a theme for the
Yeah,
season or for a concert?
often. And so for the singer season, we've been doing kind of like four subscription series events throughout the year. And then right in the middle of it all, we do Messiah each year with the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. So as I like to say, to the left of Messiah. In October, I'll kind of try to pick a theme. This year, it's going to be some really special American choral music. We're going to do Lauridsen's Midwinter Songs and a piece by Caroline Shaw, the youngest Pulitzer Prize winner ever, called To the Hands. And that's for choir and string quintet. We're going to record that in October. We've been working over the last few years on our next CD release of music for choir and strings. And her piece is going to kind of be the last one we put on that and get it produced and out into the world. But we always know there's going to be a Christmas concert, so we've called it What Sweeter Music since 2004. And we typically in March do this sacred, it's kind of sacred masterworks program that we've called My Soul's Repose, which comes from one of the late verses in Thomas Tallis's the Tallis canon, if you will. "Oh, may my soul on thee repose" is the opening of a verse, and I thought, my soul's repose. And so we've had that name since season one for kind of a sacred masterworks program. And then in April, it looks like we're going to do kind of a spring bouquet of choral music from around the world, but lean into some things that maybe are considered core choral canon, but maybe aren't performed as much anymore. Music of Ravel and songs of Brahms and that kind of thing, and pair it with a lot of American music along the way. So I always know that the middle of the season seems to be Christmas and My Soul's Repose. So half of the big work is done. And then it's just kind of framing rep and music that the audiences will just love and find meaning in. It's really important to me. And I've never programmed alone. I have a wonderful music advisor. I learned that from Dale. Don't program alone. Brian Blessing's been my partner in programming and is the choir manager. And he's been with me from day one and was actually my student teacher when I was teaching high school choir at Hopkins High School. Brian was a student teacher, and we even knew each other before that. So we met in 1998 when he was a high school music nerd at Staples Motley High School. And we've just been working together ever since. So it takes a lot of just chatting, and I say no to a lot of his ideas more than I say yes, but he's gotten used to that. And now I just joke that I go out and conduct whatever music Brian's picked. But the collaboration part's really important. I mean, in every aspect of the choir, the collaboration, the community you lean into, the artists who are in the room, handpicked and all that. The longer I've done this, the more I've come to appreciate that aspect of it. And we all have buy-in to the really high musical standard that I set and am persnickety about with the choir. Lots of buy-in, or people would just be singing somewhere else. But it's a really, really special group of people. I'm really blessed to make music with them.
That's great. Now, do you have a favorite composer?
No, there are so many composers whose work I look at each page and I go, I don't even know why I write. you know, if there's a time where I'm doubting any godlike being, I think, well, there was a time where somebody sat down, Bach, and wrote Sing et dem Herrn and put every note on paper. Wait, there's a higher power somewhere. I don't have any idea what it is, but it exists because so did Bach, so did Handel, so did Britten. So it's really hard for me, but I've got favorite local composers whose work I've championed over the years: Jocelyn Hagen, Tim Takash, Abby Bettinas, and Josh Shank is a great composer. He's since moved out to the East Coast, and there's a young composer named Scott Senko in the Twin Cities. We just premiered two of his pieces in April that we commissioned from him, and he's gonna be a name. He's winning contests everywhere. So I thought we need to get in on that action. But I love music of the Baroque. There's just something about the form and the structure and just how exciting that music remains hundreds of years later. That's a real magic potion. But yeah, I have pretty eclectic musical taste, and it's hard to narrow down. But I'm not a champion of Bach's, but I can't just put the scores down. Once I start reading it like a coffee table book, you can find yourself there a long time. So uh, yeah, hard to say other favorites.
Now, you've mentioned collaboration. I know that
Yeah.
you have a talented twin brother, Michael, who is also in the music world. Do you
Yeah,
collaborate with him?
we do. Yeah. We did a concert, oh gosh, 2 years ago, in our 20th anniversary year. So 3 years ago, 3 seasons ago, we collaborated at Central Lutheran Church in downtown Minneapolis. Concordia Choir sang their tour program or parts of it. The singers sang a set. And then we combined on a piece that I had been commissioned to write from my high school orchestra director, Barb Flooding, in honor of her husband, Bob Sieving, who happened to be our high school choir director and one of our musical heroes. And so on that, we had the Concordia Choir and my choir join up so that Bob could hear it performed for the first time. And so I went and sat with Bob and let Michael conduct it. Um, and that was a really special collaboration. We've collaborated a few times now since Michael took the helm of the Concordia Choir, and it's opened a really lovely gateway for a lot of singers who are coming out of Michael's program who are moving to the cities. We've gotten a lot of really good young, eager artists coming out of Concordia. So that's been really fruitful. But we talk all the time. I called him this morning on my way to a church meeting. He's driving the Concordia choir robes to Brainerd to get dry cleaned. I'm like, you do that? Like, of course. And he was listening to a record of Bach motets. And meanwhile, I had called him to talk about Bach motets this morning real quick because I'm trying to narrow down which one I'm going to do in March. So we talk a lot of shop, he and I, and he'll call me all summer long about the Concordia Christmas program, and we go back and forth. And thankfully, we, aside from being twin brothers, there's also like this professional respect where when he calls me and says, "What do you think of this theme for the 100th Concordia Christmas concert?" I'm thankfully very comfortable to say that's not it. That's not it. It doesn't have the spark. And he gets frustrated sometimes, but in this case, he also knew that he was kind of feeling that too. And so it's fun to work with him. We have a younger brother, Mark, who lives out in Colorado. He was in restaurant management for a long time and works in the hospital system there in Fort Collins. And um, a lot of our friends think Mark is up there with Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, but he does exist. And he tried music and said, not for me. I don't suspect it was easy being the younger Culloton and kind of following us in some things in school. So he went his own way and has been wildly successful. And but yeah, Michael and I talk a lot of shop many times a week.
Now, you mentioned a few moments ago a memory of your collaboration 3 seasons ago with your brother,
Yeah.
and it sounded like that was a special memory. Do you have any other best memory of a musical performance?
Oh, sure. There's been this accidental tie over the years to the Singers and Chicago. We have been invited 4 times to perform at the Ravinia Festival outside of Chicago. Twice we brought the Rachmaninoff Vespers to the Martin Theater and to the church that's in the Ravinia neighborhood as well. So to bring the singers to perform at Ravinia has been a real highlight for all of us who've been there. We just appreciate the history of the place, and being asked to do that was pretty awesome. And the other Chicago thing was we were singing at a national conference for the American Choral Directors Association. And one of our venues happened to be Orchestra Hall in Chicago. And when we walked out to rehearse for the first time, to step on the same podium that legends have stood on and conducted the orchestra, it was really overwhelming to find ourselves there, and for all of us. And that hall is so shallow. compared to the orchestra hall behind you, which has some depth to it. Orchestra Hall in Minneapolis, if people haven't been there, it's like that top balcony, you feel like they're right on top of you. And so there's this intimacy in the grandness of it all too. And so yeah, those are really special. And honestly, some of my favorite memories with the singers are just these moments that happen in concert where there's magic, and I'll get a jaw quiver or something. It just hits you in a different way. And those moments, they don't happen every concert. You could be having a great concert, but there's just this elevated thing where everybody's hooked up together, and it's just magnificent. Yeah, so we've had a lot of those over the years, but yeah, you kind of can't see them coming. They just hit you.
Do you have a dream program that you would like to put together someday?
Yeah, I have a lot of them, and which is really exciting. But I would love to do the six Bach motets in one evening. Um, I think of those as some of the pinnacles of choral music, and there's such variety, in the six that we kind of call the main six, because now we think he wrote some of the ones that J.C. Bach's name are on and that kind of thing. But that would be. That's a very niche program. I don't know if the audience wants to see all of them in one sitting, but for me, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do the Brahms German Requiem at some point. That calls for such a huge orchestra, and then you need a huge choir. So I could see it maybe in a singers festival sort of thing, down the road a little bit, but. Yeah, for me, it's like dream programs also include music that I don't even know exists yet, and it might not. We've loved doing the concerts that are just new music from start to end. I appreciate that the audience trusts me with new music programming, and they know that I'm not looking for obtuse, angular music that everybody just hates. I'm looking for music that has spirit and heart and good form, and is written well for the choir and says something meaningful. And our audiences, we've premiered over 110 new choral works since 2004. And I think the audience is along for the ride now. At the beginning, it was a little touch and go, but they trust my taste and what I want to share with them, and that's an important part of programming. We'll sing for an empty hall, but we'd really like to sing for an audience and have that dialogue back and forth. So,
You mentioned a few moments ago students coming out of your brother's program at Concordia.
yeah.
What advice would you give to a young singer who wants to come to the Twin Cities or elsewhere in Minnesota to get started on a career?
Um, Embrace flexibility in how you approach singing. In other words, if opera is your jam, you should probably be able to then flip it and sing a simple folk song. Um, you should be able to go from an opera chorus to singing, Jesu meine Freude of Bach, or where the voice can change for the color that's sort of needed at the time. I'm always looking for singers that are expressive, even in a vocalese, even in an audition sight reading excerpt. I'm looking for the ones who actually do the dynamics that are in that excerpt too. So not to like put yourself in one. I'm an opera singer, or great, that's great. There is a place for that. But for me and the singers, I'm looking for flexibility. I always make them sing two contrasting excerpts when they audition for me. One is always like a movement from either Handel's Messiah, since we sing it every year, or Bach Magnificat, that kind of a thing. And the other is always the Dominic Argento excerpt. Dominic's music elevates the artistry of anybody who touches it, and is very different from other voices. So I'm looking for that flexibility from the first time they meet me in an audition. And the other thing is, you're singing with others. You're being kind of put into a community, and some people don't like to be sort of forced into a already existing community. But you just go out. You're with people who need to be lifted up by you too. And someday you'll need to be doing the lifting, and someday you need to be lifted up. And so, kind of remaining open to the people who are in the room with you. I've passed on a lot of good singers over the years because I knew that their attitude, personality was not going to be a good fit to be in the singers. And that's something that I've learned from Dale over the years was pick people you can make music with for a year because you're kind of stuck with everybody who you pick. And so, yeah, it's just like be a good person, be a team player and come prepared. In our case, everybody knows what the music is for each rehearsal in advance with the notion that they've already learned it at home. And so we can assemble. I only get 6 rehearsals a project. So we move really fast through some really significant works. But be flexible, be of good cheer, be open minded, and just come ready to work. Have a spirit that's willing. It's contagious. When you have a room like that, you can do anything. You can make music that's out of this world, and then nobody hears it because it's a rehearsal.
Matthew Culloton, thank you very much for joining us in this conversation. It's
It
been a
is
real
my
pleasure.
pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.